There's something unsettling about ruins, especially the ones that history forgets. Whitmore Abbey stands alone, surrounded by fog-covered moorland and silence so deep it presses against your skin. Built nearly 1,000 years ago and abandoned without explanation, its crumbling stone walls and arched windows feel less like a monument and more like a warning. For centuries, locals have kept their distance, muttering old superstitions about whispers beneath the earth and shadows that move without light. No official record explains why the monks left. No war, no fire, no plague, just silence. And then gone. But a few months ago, something changed. A group of archaeologists, digging through layers of untouched history, broke into something no one had ever documented. A sealed crypt, deep beneath the abbey's foundations. Inside it, something waited. Not just bones or artifacts, but something alive in the dark. Since then, people have disappeared. Audio recordings captured voices in languages no one recognizes, and a journal, buried for nearly a century, contained a single sentence scrawled in its final page. Do not wake the sleepers. Whitmore Abbey was founded in 1132 by a small order of monks who claimed to be sent from the Vatican itself, though curiously, no records of such an order exist today. The abbey was built in an unusual spot, far from trade routes, distant from any major town, and perched on moorland that locals had always avoided. From the start, the villagers whispered about strange rituals. The monks were rarely seen during the day, and chants were often heard echoing from the hills late into the night. What's even stranger is how abruptly it all ended. Sometime in the late 1300s, the monks simply vanished. No bodies, no records, not even signs of struggle. One day they were there, and the next, the abbey was silent, abandoned. No one dared move in, not even during the land-hungry days of expansion and empire. Farmers steered their animals wide around it. Children were warned not to play near the ruins. Over time, stories grew. Some claimed the monks weren't monks at all, but guardians, sealing something beneath the earth. Others spoke of a black book hidden in the walls, filled with rituals that promised eternal silence or eternal life. And then, there were the tales of those who went exploring beneath the abbey and never returned. But of course, to the modern world, these were just myths. Until now. In 1931, a quiet academic named Edward Langley became obsessed with Whitmore Abbey. A historian by training, but a folklorist at heart, Langley had stumbled across a footnote in an old manuscript that mentioned the bound sleepers beneath Whitmore. That phrase haunted him. The deeper he dug, the more strange references he found. Passages blacked out in monastic records, mentions of watchers stationed at the abbey, and letters from priests warning others never to set foot on those grounds again. His colleagues laughed it off. A forgotten ruin with no real historical value, they said. But Langley wasn't convinced. He began traveling to the moorland, camping near the site, speaking with locals, many of whom refused to even say the abbey's name aloud. Despite the warnings, he kept returning. Some nights, he swore he heard chanting coming from beneath the earth. Other times, he found symbols etched into the stonework that hadn't been there the day before. In the spring of 1937, Langley wrote to his university, claiming he had found proof of a hidden structure below the abbey. He called it a vault of unnatural origin. That was the last letter he ever sent. Days later, he vanished without a trace. His tent was found torn apart near the ruins. No blood, no signs of struggle. Only his journal, open to a half-finished sentence. They were never meant to be disturbed. Decades passed. Edward Langley's name faded into obscurity, buried under skepticism and silence. Until now. In early 2023, a small team of archaeologists and graduate students began a sanctioned excavation of Whitmore Abbey. The goal was simple: map the remaining structure, collect relics, and finally put the old ghost stories to rest. But within the first few weeks, they stumbled onto something none of them could explain. While clearing debris near the southern wall, one of the team members noticed an odd echo beneath the stone floor. After days of careful digging, they uncovered a sealed stone door, no hinges, no handles, and no mention of it on any blueprint. Just a Latin inscription carved across the center that read, "Let what is buried remain veiled." Most assumed it was symbolic, a warning from the superstitious past. But late one night, driven by curiosity and pressure from sponsors, the team broke the seal. Behind it, they found a stairway descending deep into the earth, winding far below the foundations of the abbey. At the bottom, a crypt. But it wasn't like anything they'd seen before. The air was thick, heavy, as if it hadn't been disturbed in centuries. The walls were lined with carved stone coffins, each marked not with names, but symbols, strange, angular runes not found in any known religious tradition. And at the far end stood a massive iron gate. Behind it was silence, too complete to be natural. Whatever this place was, it had been meant to stay hidden. But now, it had been found. As the team explored the crypt, it became clear that this was no ordinary burial site. The stone coffins were sealed with thick iron bands, and many had what looked like wax or tar melted into the cracks, almost as if they were designed to keep something in, not preserve it. The symbols covering the walls weren't just decorative, they repeated in exact patterns, pulsing with a strange mathematical precision. One of the researchers remarked that they resembled ancient ciphers or containment formulas rather than anything spiritual. And then there was the mural. Painted across the largest wall of the chamber, a massive fresco showed cloaked figures encircling a great pit. In the center, something stirred, its form hidden beneath thick brush strokes of red and black. But here's where things turn unsettling. When viewed through a camera, parts of the mural seemed different. Details that weren't visible to the naked eye began to appear. More figures, strange eyes drawn into the corners, and in one frame, what looked like a face, human, but twisted. Even more disturbing, the temperature inside the crypt never changed. No matter the time of day or how long they stayed below, it remained unnaturally cold. Equipment malfunctioned, flashlights flickered, and there was a low hum, just at the edge of hearing, that none of them could explain. It felt less like a sound, and more like something alive, breathing beneath the floor. This wasn't just a crypt, it was a prison, and something inside it was still awake. Tucked behind a loose brick in one of the crypt's side alcoves, a team member uncovered something unexpected, an old leather-bound journal, wrapped tightly in cloth and sealed with what looked like dried wax. The pages were brittle, yellowed with age, but still legible. Scrawled inside, in a hurried hand, was a name none of them recognized at first: Edward Langley. The entries started off academic, notations on architecture, historical theories, sketches of the abbey's layout. But as the pages turned, the tone shifted. Langley's words became more frantic, scattered. He wrote of strange dreams, of seeing monks walking the halls at night, even though the building had been empty for centuries. He spoke of whispers in a language he couldn't understand, and of shadows that moved just beyond the light of his lantern. The last few entries were chilling. He wrote that he had discovered the crypt, had seen it with his own eyes, but dared not enter. He believed it wasn't a burial place, but a containment chamber. His notes described the same iron-bound coffins, the same unnatural cold. He wrote that the monks had bound something beneath the abbey, and that each coffin wasn't a grave, but a lock on something deeper. And then came the final page, barely a few lines of text, smeared and desperate. They are not dead, they dream, and if we open all the doors, they will wake. Langley was never seen again. But now, his journal has resurfaced, right where he said it would be, and the team had already opened the first lock. Not long after the journal was found, the mood among the team began to shift. What started as quiet curiosity quickly turned to unease. Equipment would short out for no reason. Lights in the tents would flicker at exactly midnight. And some team members began to hear things, low, muffled voices, always around the same time, always coming from deep within the crypt. At first, they thought it was a trick of the wind, or maybe the stone echoing sounds in strange ways. But the murmurs grew louder, more distinct. One night, a researcher named Tomas stayed behind to catalog artifacts. At exactly 12:03 a.m., he radioed the surface team, whispering that he could hear chanting, not in Latin or English, but in something older, something broken. His voice cut off mid-sentence. When they reached him minutes later, he was standing motionless in front of one of the coffins, eyes open, but completely unresponsive. He didn't speak again for 3 days. Others began having the same experience, waking up in their tents with dirt on their feet. Some were found standing near the crypt, barefoot, still asleep. Whatever was down there wasn't content with being found. It had started to reach out, not with force, but with whispers, with suggestions, with dreams. They called it the pull. That feeling of being watched, lured, invited back underground. It always started at midnight, and each night it grew harder to resist. One of the grad students, Elise, recorded hours of audio from inside the crypt. She didn't hear anything strange at the time, but when she played it back later, the whispers were there. At first, just faint murmurs beneath the surface noise. But then, a single, raspy voice came through, speaking clearly. "The gate is open. The rest must follow." The team grew paranoid. Sleep became rare. People began taking turns standing watch, not just to guard the dig site, but each other. Some of them had started waking up outside their tents, barefoot, standing at the entrance to the crypt, dirt smeared on their clothes. They had no memory of how they got there. It was like something was pulling them back to the underground. Not violently. Almost gently. Then came the incident with Dr. Levinson. He went missing one night during a power outage. They found him in the crypt hours later, standing completely still, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. He was facing one of the sealed coffins. He didn't blink, didn't speak. When they pulled him away, he muttered just one sentence over and over, like a broken loop. "It's not sleep, it's waiting." At this point, the whispers weren't just a sound anymore. They had become a presence. And once you heard them, they didn't stop. As the days passed and the whispers deepened, the team began to realize they hadn't just uncovered a crypt. They had disrupted a design, a structure, something deliberate. Layer by layer, they mapped the underground passageways and symbols, and what they found chilled them to the core. The layout of the crypt was not random. The coffins weren't placed as burials. They were arranged like a seal, a geometric lock, a pattern used not to honor the dead, but to imprison something beneath. One of the team members, a linguist named Wren, made a breakthrough. He began translating the strange runes etched into the stone, symbols that predated Latin, predating even Celtic languages. They told a fragmented story of a deep one, not born of man or nature, but summoned, or worse, fed. The monks, according to these carvings, were not ordinary holy men. They were part of a secretive sect tasked with binding the creature, not through prayer, but through sacrifice. Every generation, a ritual was performed to keep the entity dormant. Offerings were made, not animals, not objects, but people, those taken in silence, whose names were never recorded. And the coffins? They weren't for monks. They were for the sacrificed, entombed in sacred geometry to suppress whatever lay below the crypt floor. Langley's notes had hinted at this, but the evidence now was undeniable. The abbey wasn't abandoned because of war or plague. It was emptied once the rituals were interrupted. The final monks, realizing they couldn't contain what they'd awakened, locked the doors and vanished into the earth, some say willingly, choosing death over failure. And now, with the crypt opened, the seal was weakening. Each coffin they disturbed, each layer they peeled back, brought them closer to the center, closer to whatever was still waiting beneath the iron gate at the end of the hall. Wren found one last phrase in the script, repeated again and again, circling the chamber like a warning. We are the lock. The gate must never open. But the gate was already beginning to shift. It all came to a head on the final night. The team had grown thin. Half had left, citing exhaustion, illness, or simply an overwhelming sense of dread they couldn't explain. But those who remained were determined to reach the truth. They returned to the crypt one last time, armed with cameras, voice recorders, and notes from Edward Langley's journal. Their goal was simple: document everything, and if possible, open the iron gate. That night, something felt different. The air was colder than ever before, sharp and metallic, like the scent of blood carried on a winter wind. The walls seemed to breathe, subtly pulsing under the flickering light of their lanterns. As they descended, they noticed the symbols etched into the stone were now glowing faintly. No light source, no explanation. Just a soft, sickly green, pulsing like veins in stone. And then the whispers began. Not quiet this time, not distant. They were everywhere. Layered voices, male and female, chanting in unison. Words that bent the mind, that didn't belong to any language spoken on earth. Wren began to weep uncontrollably. Elise collapsed to her knees, clutching her ears, mumbling over and over, "It's not just a voice. It knows me." When they reached the iron gate, it was already ajar. Not wide, just enough for a man to slip through. No one admitted to moving it. The recordings from the night before had shown it sealed shut. But now, it beckoned. One of them, Dr. Carter, stepped forward, drawn to it like a moth to flame. Against every scream, every instinct, she passed through the gate. What she saw inside was never recorded. The camera she carried cut to static the moment she vanished from view. Her microphone picked up only one thing: the sound of her breath stopping, followed by a long, wet, scraping sound. And then silence. They ran. Those who remained didn't look back, not until they reached the surface. And when they did, the gate was closed again, sealed, as if it had never been touched. After that final night, everything changed. The team that had returned to the surface was silent, shaken to their core. Some refused to speak of what they'd seen or heard underground. Others spoke only in whispers, glancing nervously over their shoulders as if expecting the shadows themselves to follow them home. The university overseeing the excavation quickly shut down the project. The site was cordoned off, deemed unsafe. No official explanation was given, just vague statements about structural instability and unforeseen hazards. But those who had been there knew the truth. Something was wrong, something beyond science or reason. Local legends gained new life, fueled by strange lights sometimes seen flickering near the ruins at night. A few villagers reported hearing chanting or feeling an invisible presence watching them from the moor. Word spread quietly, but fear kept most people away. As for the team, many left archaeology altogether. Some sought therapy, others vanished without a trace, like Edward Langley before them. And the journal? It was locked away in a university archive, hidden behind layers of security, but copies leaked to curious researchers and conspiracy forums. The abbey remains sealed, its secrets buried for now. But the question lingers: what exactly lies beneath Whitmore Abbey, and what happens when curiosity breaks the locks meant to keep it contained? Even now, long after the site was sealed and the team disbanded, whispers about Whitmore Abbey refuse to fade. Some say the abbey itself hums with restless energy, like a wound that never fully heals. Occasionally, hikers report strange sounds on the moor, low murmurs carried on the wind, as if the crypt beneath is still trying to speak. Others believe that what was locked away beneath the abbey was not just a creature, but a force. A darkness waiting patiently, biding its time, trapped behind stone and iron, but never truly defeated. Some speculate that Edward Langley's disappearance and the fate of the modern team are proof that curiosity can awaken things best left undisturbed. And maybe that's the real horror, the idea that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. So, what do you think lies beneath Whitmore Abbey? Is it a sleeping terror, waiting to rise, or just the echoes of old legends twisting in the wind? Share your theories below, because every mystery needs its storytellers. And that brings us to the end of this chilling journey beneath Whitmore Abbey. What started as a simple archaeological dig quickly became a descent into a mystery far darker than anyone expected. Remember, some secrets are buried for a reason, but human curiosity often pushes us to dig deeper. If you enjoyed this story and want more mysterious, eerie tales that keep you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Now, it's your turn. What do you think lies beneath the crypt? Could the whispers still be calling out? Or is this just another legend lost to time? Drop your theories, thoughts, or any spooky stories you know in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep your eyes open. Because sometimes, the darkest secrets are right beneath your feet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.